Let's get this party started!
He's shining a light in the dark corners of our media.
You are fake news.
Our government.
Handling of classified documents.
And our culture.
Don't trust anyone.
It's common sense amidst chaos.
Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome.
Here's your host, Ike Wingate.
Hello and welcome to the show. It is Thursday, July 3rd, 2025, the day before Independence Day, and we are moments removed from the big, beautiful bill passing. And somehow our network feeds up here in the studio are all on unmute all of a sudden. Okay, so there we go. We're going to go ahead and just join right now. We're going to go join Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, in progress, addressing the nation after this passing of the big, beautiful bill just moments ago. So take a look.
The people, by the people, for the people, all of us. So you got to be engaged, and we got to pass this along to the next generation. Reagan reminded us, freedom's not inherited in the bloodstream. It's got to be protected. It's got to be fought for. It's got to be taught to the next generation so that they will have the same liberty, opportunity, and security that we have all known and too often take it for granted. So I just want to say, we're going to get to the main event here. We're about to sign this bill and get it over to the White House, okay? Some of these men and women have got to go catch flights and stuff. So we're going to sign this real quick, and I'll take a few questions. But I just want to say this: do not take for granted what we have been given. This grand experiment in self-governance. We can preserve it, but we got to do it all together. God bless you. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
All right, so we got there for just the right moment as the big, beautiful bill passes 218 to 214. There were two no votes on this bill. I can bet that you can guess at least one of them. No? Yeah, Thomas Massie is anything if not consistent. And of course, he voted no. And then Fitzpatrick out of Pennsylvania voted no as well. Thomas Massie has put out a statement regarding why he voted no, and it was because the bill did have conservative wins. However, it will significantly increase the U.S. deficit. Let's bring Mike Johnson's audio back in here. And he has just signed the bill, the House version of the bill, and it is. There we go. Okay. I'm guessing that is that Newsmax's audio feed coming in through there.
Okay. Apparently, the Village People, YMCA, the quote-unquote anthem for President Trump and the MAGA movement, just started playing there on Capitol Hill with House Speaker Mike Johnson.
Okay, so apparently it was playing there on the in the room. I don't know. I can't tell if they're joking or not. But nonetheless, it is passed. It is passed, and then now everybody says, "What the heck is in the bill?" Which is a good question to ask. Now we're going to actually show you some of the things we went through that the other day with you as far as what is in this bill, different from the House version. So the House made their version. They sent it over to the Senate. The Senate parliamentarian kind of screwed it up, took some stuff out. They had to vote specifically on some amendments to defunding Planned Parenthood. There's still a loophole in there on illegal immigrants getting Medicaid, but that is because the states are the ones that allow it. So they tried to close some of the loopholes there. I'm guessing that is going to be something that is specifically targeted in maybe separate legislation or an executive order or something like that. And so you have school choice in here, of course. You have funding, some criticism of the bill is it's giving too much funding to border security and then defense. Now, I would say that border security is certainly a worthy line item as far as something that needs to have money spent on it, right? We're talking about finishing the wall. Not only are we talking about detention centers like Alligator Alcatraz that we talked about earlier this week, but we're also talking about, mechanisms in order to root out and rid the cartel of their influence as it relates to the illegal border crossings. Hello, Eli. I see you. Welcome into the show. I've given you a shout out. So those are big items, but not to bury the lead here, the biggest item of all is the tax cuts. Now, we're talking about the extension of the Trump tax cuts of 2017, which were temporary, if you will, basically for 7 years, something like that. And then if this was not passed, our taxes were going to go way up. Not only did we extend the 2017 tax cuts, we also added additional things like child tax credits, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. The thing that bothers me about this particular tax portion is that the no tax on tips and the no tax on overtime is only through the end of 2028. So you would have basically 2026, 2027, and 2028 tax years to be able to have tax-free tips and tax-free overtime. There are some parameters around it as far as your income level, so it's not just a free-for-all no matter what. I was thinking about this and really kind of irritated because I am thinking, wait a minute, that was one of President Trump's key campaign promises and pillars, and the Senate basically gutted it. But here's what I think. I think one of the reasons they did it is they wanted to mitigate deficit levels, because any income tax revenue that's not coming in is a deficit to an extent, right? And so they looked at some of the long-term effects and said, okay, well, we're going to do this because we're already, in a deficit because we're not bringing in as much taxpayer revenue. Now, how many tips and how many things are really going to, bring in as far as revenue from a deficit standpoint? It seems like it would be, it wouldn't be substantial, not enough to change it. But here's one of the things I think that they're teeing up. I think maybe they thought, let's see how it plays out as far as the no tax on tips and what the revenue implications are as far as deficit goes. But here's the other thing. I think this is actually strategic. And that is, you have teed this up for a big argument on this in 2027. Okay. So, I mean, you might even be able to start doing it next year. But what you can do as far as this issue goes is you make this a campaign issue on whether or not someone's going to vote to extend the no tax on tips and the no tax on overtime. You see what I'm saying? So let's say, you've got midterms coming up next year. That's 2026. You had the no tax on tips, through 2028. So in the 2027 campaign season going into 2028 for president and these other races, they're going to make this a key issue, as in, I'm going to run and I am going to extend the no tax on tips and no tax on overtime, which is going to play very well with the working class, very well with blue collar workers in swing states. I think they may have actually possibly done this as a strategic move in order for this to be a key campaign issue in the next, presidential election. I don't think it's going to come up in the midterms, but I think it's certainly possible that it does during that particular campaign season. You see what I'm saying? So I think they might even actually be using it I would rather it just be in there and be permanent. And because it is such a new thing, I can understand lots of tax provisions are temporary and do sunset at some point unless they're extended. And so you can't have everything you want, right? You hear people talking about billionaires as well. The billionaires are getting rich, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But I need to tell you, I'm glad you have joined us. We went straight into content because we joined Mike Johnson, who's now taking questions. If you want me to go to him, I can, but they did their job. Yeehaw. You know, they whined and whined and whined about having to work a long time. I'm sorry, that just doesn't resonate with the American people. Does it? Oh, I haven't been able to go on my beach vacation, or we've been up for 48 hours. Look, yeah, I don't want to do that. You know, it sounds unpleasant, but I'm not crying for you with all the time you guys get off. And here's the other thing is the deadline. President Trump had to set a deadline because think about this. It's human nature. If you don't have a deadline, you don't get it done. Just like when you were in school and you had the paper due on a certain date. A lot of people, most people waited until 2 days before or sometimes the night before. But if you didn't have that deadline, I mean, the deadline could be 3 weeks out and you wouldn't do a lick of work until about 48 hours out. Tell me I'm wrong. Now, there's some special people out there that plan ahead and they're probably, really at peace because they get things done. But most people don't do that. And that's the same with Congress. So there had to be a date set. Okay. So that's why, Democrats want to talk, this arbitrary date, blah, 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 blah. Well, it had to get done. I think there's other implications too with the timing of that date, and we will get into that coming up. But back to the point here. I'm glad you're here. Please help us out in the algorithm by smashing that thumbs up, smash the like button, heart the post. If you're watching on X, repost us. I know there's already been some reposts happen. Thank you for those. Over on Rumble, you can repost as well. And if you are watching on TikTok, you can double tap and share. Make sure you're following me as well. If you want to see what we're showing you on the screen, you can follow me over to the link in my bio, which is IkeReport.com. So it is the eve of Independence Day, our nation's birthday, right? And so President Trump is planning to sign the big, beautiful bill tomorrow, Independence Day at the White House. They've already got the things in the works. And so they're going to have a big, historical moment on a historical anniversary of the largest tax cuts in our nation's history. Allegedly, right? I don't know all the tax bills, but at one time we weren't paying taxes. So I don't know that, you could call it that. But nonetheless, here's what's going to happen. You're about to unleash the economy. This is just one of the prongs in this 3-prong approach: tariff deals, tax cuts, and hopefully a rate cut at the Fed. They meet at the end of July. So I am telling you right now, I'm making a prediction here on July 3rd, and I've made this prediction, weeks ago. And that is, you get those 3 things done and you will have an explosion in the economy. Get ready, my friends. It is coming. I've warned you. If you're like, oh man, I wish I would have invested in this, or I wish I would have bought that. Now's the time. Now's the time. Got to say thank you to Star, $5 contribution on the board via Cash App. Thank you, Star, very, very much. If you'd like to be like Star and contribute to our mission here to bring critical thinking back to America by shining a light into the dark corners of our government, culture, and media, you can contribute right now using Venmo or Cash App at IkeReport.com, IkeReport.com. Okay, so we know that the bill is passed. We saw Mike Johnson. Here was a little bit of his speech prior to going to a vote on this big, beautiful bill. Mind you, Hakeem Jeffries spoke for 8 hours straight. What is it with the Democrats speaking for hours and hours and hours for no good apparent reason, right? But anyway, here was Mike Johnson after Hakeem Jeffries' 8-hour speech. He makes a joke by putting the big binder up on the podium, acting like he's got a lot to read. And that was just a jab at Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrats.
I thank the gentleman from Missouri. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, Ronald Reagan said one time that no speech should be longer than 20 minutes. And unlike the Democrat leader, I'm going to honor my colleague's time and be a little more brief than that. All right. I just want to say something that many of us learned when we were children. We were taught, you know, it takes a lot longer to build a lie than to tell the simple truth.
What I'm talking about.
My friends and colleagues on both sides of the aisle, we've waited long enough. Some of us have literally been up for days now. But this day is a hugely important one in the history of our nation. We have a big job to finish, and that's why we're here.
Okay. So it's pretty good line there. It takes a lot longer to build a lie than to tell the simple truth. And that's probably why it took 8 hours for Hakeem Jeffries to try to scare everybody to death and say that they're gonna die because their Medicaid is going to go away. That is a freaking lie from hell. Let me tell you, this people are going to lose their health care. Let me tell you, anybody who is saying that, and I've seen it on social media, people I know on my Facebook saying, I don't post politically very often, but this is going to just hurt so many people. So many people are going to be dying on the streets, and they're going to be walking around, and all of a sudden they're going to die because of Trump. That's horse crap. Okay? It's rubbish. What they are doing in this bill is they are ridding out people that are gaming the system. The requirements for people is 80 hours a month, 20 hours a week, 20 hours a week, 20 hours a week. In case you aren't aware, the standard full-time hourly amount per week is 40, okay? Which I don't remember ever working just 40 hours in a week. To be able to work 40 hours in a week, I got to be honest with you, when you have as an entrepreneur, that doesn't exist, okay? And even when I worked for somebody else, that was extremely rare. You start at 8 and you're done at 4 or 9 to 4 or whatever, depending on what it is with you. Like 40 hours a week, standard work week, okay? Now, if you're just sweating bullets and working like a dog for 40 hours a week, yeah, it feels like more than 40 hours a week. Okay, so I'm not diminishing a 40-hour week at all. What I'm saying is, if you work just 40 hours a week, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. You still have a lot of quality of life because you still have a lot of time that you can do other things. Okay? 40 hours a week. We're talking about half of that. We're talking about 20 hours a week. And that can even be volunteering. That's the requirement that they are complaining and moaning about. 20 hours a week. You can even volunteer. Oh, that's too much. Oh, people are going to die because they're going to have to work that 20 hours. We can't take it here. Donald Trump's trying to kill everybody. Freaking ridiculous. Okay, the other thing that the Senate did isn't, and this is a little more stringent than the House, they said actually every 6 months you're going to have to make sure that you're eligible for Medicaid instead of once every year. Seems pretty good to me. If you're getting free money, you ought to have to, confirm that you're still eligible. I don't have a problem with it. I'm sure it's a pain in the butt for people that have to do it, but this should come with the territory. Okay? Nobody owes you anything. I just wanted you to know that. If you're receiving help from the government because you need it, I understand. But it is a gift. Okay? It's not owed to you for existing. That might sound harsh. It happens. People need a hand up sometimes. I have nothing against that. I wish it wasn't the government that was doing it. I wish it were nonprofits and churches and things like that. That's what our founders intended. They didn't intend for the government to be the hand up, but here we are. So if that's something that's temporary, like a year or less, maybe, I don't begrudge you that, because people fall on hard times. It happens. And this is what it's there for, to help somebody in a rough time. It is not meant to be a crutch for life. But the overarching point remains, and that is, it is not owed to you. Even though you're eligible, the attitude shouldn't be, give me my money, government. No, 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 no. This is a gift to you that the taxpayers have afforded you. Okay? And so the attitude for obtaining these benefits doesn't need to be, this is what's owed to me because I don't make much money. It should be, this is what has been gifted to me because at this point in my life, I don't make enough to afford what I need. Now, I hope the mindset is for able-bodied people, this is temporary. I'm going to keep working hard and I'm going to do what I have to do because I don't want to stay here. Okay? I hope that's the attitude for a lot of people. Unfortunately, it's not. But the idea that the government owes it, better gimme, 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 is so wrong. Instead, the attitude needs to be, thank you for helping me in my time of need, taxpayers. And yes, I will gladly reconfirm that I am eligible every 6 months because that's the least I can do. Yet, Democrats act like this is a death sentence. I mean, can you believe it? This is what they're talking about. That is so terrible. This is what they're talking about. So they're lying about that. They're lying about it being a benefit to billionaires. It's an estate tax. That's the only thing that's changed for billionaires, which I would argue is an unconstitutional tax anyway. Because these people have been paying taxes their entire lives. You know, when you sell a business, even though you've been paying taxes on all the earnings that you have, guess what? The government gets a portion of that in capital gains. And guess what? If the person that bought your business goes and sells it later, guess what they have to do? They have to pay capital gains. Interesting, isn't it? Basically, the government double dips over and over and over and over and over. And let me tell you, people that are billionaires have experienced double, triple, quadruple, 10 times taxed over and over and over on the same money. Okay? I'm not trying to get sympathy for billionaires. I'm just trying to tell you that's called money people problem, rich people problems. Okay? It happens. People go, oh, they just don't pay their fair share. Let me tell you, the tax loopholes are the tax loopholes, but there are some things they just cannot get out of. And let me tell you, the billionaires, the top 1%, are paying the vast majority of tax revenue. Don't let anybody fool you. But I'm not trying to get sympathy for billionaires. What I'm trying to tell you is, while they have paid duplicitous taxes over the course of their careers, then when they die, their estate gets taxed. Sometimes 40%. How is that fair? They worked their entire life, and now the government basically gets more than their own heirs? That is unconstitutional. Okay, but back to the bill, what it changes is, you know that you can inherit $14 million tax-free. Did you know that? Now, some states are going to try to get their pound of flesh, but federally, $14 million. Okay? If somebody passes down more than that, it's taxed at a huge rate, sometimes 40%, maybe sometimes more. What this bill has done is said, you know what, actually, you can pass down up to 28 million. They doubled it, 28 million tax-free to the heir. Okay? And so that's the only change. But yet Pocahontas went on earlier this week. We showed you crying. This is just for the billionaires. We're going to kill people and we're enriching just a small handful of billionaires. What a frigging lie. It's a flat out lie. But this is the playbook. Democrats love to incite their base all with emotion, not with facts, just feelings. No facts, just feelings. And they're successful because there's a lot of Democrats that don't watch, don't read, don't investigate, don't educate, don't look into anything at all. And they just eat it up. Well, doggone it, I don't want that to happen. Pocahontas says they're going to kill us. Donald Trump is just a dictator. He's an evil man. He's a murderer. I mean, that's basically the chain of events for so many Democrats out there. And so, anyway, back to this bill, a lot of lies being told. And I'm laying out to you, when you see this on your social feed and you want to get involved, you hear this over the 4th of the Independence Day weekend, you can say, time out. I'm a member of Ike Nation, and I can tell you for sure that is 100% false. And if they don't believe it, just show them the replay of this show from today. Or better yet, it's not very hard to run these AI index searches to understand what's in things, what's changed, what the implications are. I mean, it's freaking brilliant, man. It's not hard to do. So the lies are out there. The fact remains, while this is not a perfect bill and it's always going to make somebody mad here or there, the main victory here are the tax cuts. Because when American business and industry hears a tax cut has been passed, something shifts. Some minutia starts to occur in the psyche, in the subconscious of decision makers, in the minds of consumers, and just overall people go, okay, help is on the way. And so it starts to free up a little more risk, a little more investment, and things start to move in a positive direction, even though they've already started to move in a positive direction. And let me tell you, we get a secured 100% done deal with China on tariffs, and it's predictable. It doesn't even really matter. I mean, it does, but it's not so much about whatever rate is landed on. It's just that a rate is landed on and secured and specific, so it's predictable for these various manufacturers. And when that happens, get ready. Get ready. Because that is going to be the second prong in this 3-prong ignition of our economy. The third is a little less in the control of President Trump, and that is the Fed dropping the interest rate, the cost of money, which impacts directly the interest rate you're paying on your credit card, but indirectly and eventually the mortgage rates, which impact the housing market, which impacts our economy bigly. When that third prong happens, I hope that you have an oh crap handle hooked up in your vehicle, because you're going to have to hang on to it, because it is going to take off, barring some unforeseen disaster, which that's always a possibility. We know that, don't we? We've lived through 2020. We know. Barring something like that, it is going to skyrocket, because there's going to be a collective sigh of relief. There's going to be confidence. There's also going to be savings. And we have the gas prices continuing to come down, lowest point in 4 years again. We have food prices. They're trailing some of the other inflation numbers, but they are on the way down as well. Obviously, lower gas prices impact that directly. And so everything is moving in the right direction. The key factor you got to consider here is this is organic growth. This is not artificially manufactured growth like we saw during the Biden administration. This isn't the government funneling a bunch of money into the system. These aren't government jobs that are being added in the latest jobs report, which I'm going to show you in a little bit. These are organic growth results. That is not inflationary growth. So we're doing it the right way. It's happening much faster than I would have thought, and most people thought. Hopeful that it would happen this fast, but it is happening much faster. And so we are going to see, as this trend continues, incredible results. Incredible results. Get ready. 2019, I don't know if you remember 2019. It was a fantastic year from an economy standpoint. There was more. I've said this. A successful capitalist system is a more free system because you're not depending on the government. You're free to go and make things happen. And that's why the people that love power hate capitalism, because it makes for a more free society. All right, got to say thank you to Nancy for a $5 contribution via Cash App. Thank you, Nancy, very much. You may have sent 2 $5 contributions. I can't tell, but either way, thank you for that. And thank you to Star of what as well. So we got $10 on the board. Let me tell you what else we're going to talk about here today. We're going to talk about the one big beautiful bill, who voted no, threats over Independence Day weekend, something you need to be aware of, and the huge jobs numbers reports. Okay, so we're going to get into all of that. And as I've said before, you can help us in the algorithm. Give us a thumbs up, whatever platform you're watching on, repost us or share us to your friends, please. If you're watching on X, heart this post and repost. Make sure you're following me on X as well. So we're gearing up for the big Independence Day weekend, right? Yeah, so it's a fun time, perfect timing with this bill being passed. And then, of course, tomorrow, the big celebration. All right, I'm going to check in on some of your comments, but I know I've just been ranting, so let me get to a couple things before I get to your comments. This is one of the no votes on the bill, Brian Fitzpatrick, on Trump's big, beautiful bill, a Republican congressman out of Pennsylvania. All the Democrats voted no, of course, and then he was one of 2 no votes from Republicans. So I believe the final tally was 218 to 214. And I told you earlier why Thomas Massie said he voted against it, and that was because of the deficit he thinks it's going to enlarge. And Elon Musk is whining about the deficit. And I whine about the deficit too, but we've got to understand how a tax bill works. Okay. So anytime you're going to, do a tax cut and reduce revenue below levels that are already coming in, the way that it's looked at in these bills and the budget process is it's a deficit. And so you have to account for the deficit. Okay. So let's say we brought in, I don't know, 3.5 trillion, 4 trillion. Okay. And they're projecting we're only going to bring in 3.5 trillion in revenue. That's a deficit of $500 billion. Now you go, well, that's not that much. Well, we're talking already that we already have a deficit in the budget of 2 trillion. So if we come up $500 billion short on revenue, now we have a deficit of 2.5 trillion for next year's budget, which means we're going to have to borrow 2.5 trillion, right? That's why the debt ceiling has to be increased, because they have to operate as if there will be no cuts and there will be no increase in revenue. They have to sort of take a conservative approach on this. If they were able to cut, $500 billion from spending, and we had $500 billion shortfall on revenue and it balanced, you wouldn't have to do anything, but that's not happening. Okay. So Elon Musk wants to complain. Thomas Massie wants to complain. Rand Paul wants to complain about, driving up the debt, increasing the debt ceiling. I'm sorry, but you have to do that in order to do a tax cut. Now, that being said, like last time, the Congressional Budget Office said we're going to have, declines in revenue after the last tax cuts. They were wrong. We lowered taxes yet raised revenue. Can you believe that? We actually brought in more revenue. Why would that happen? Well, it's called growth, my friends. When you take the burden off the American worker, off the American entrepreneur, the American business, they invest in growth. And that's what happens. They give raises. That's what happens. It doesn't happen everywhere. And I'm not saying it's a one size fits all, but it's evident. We were literally projected to do less revenue. Not only did we not do less revenue, we actually did more revenue than from the standpoint of when the tax rate was higher. Okay. So those are things that are not figured into these budgets because you just don't know. You might have a good idea, but you can't pass something, hoping that'll happen. Now, what definitely needs to happen right now is the tax cuts spur growth. We increase our revenue beyond what they think, right? Because of growth. But the other side that has to happen is we have to have the reconciliation bills come behind here and cut things. You have to have that. If they do that and they do it effectively, which I am very skeptical that they will, because, history. But if they actually did their job and did it like the American people want, we would get closer to that balanced budget place, even with the change in tax code, hopefully more revenue, and we could get closer to that balanced budget situation where we wouldn't have to worry or rely on the debt ceiling. You understand what I'm saying? So Elon's crying about it. For the guy who's the richest guy in the world and as smart as he is, he doesn't understand anything about politics. He doesn't. He just doesn't. And so I wish someone would explain it to him because it would probably make his life a lot easier and it would cut down on all this, all this bull crap regarding the rift between he and Trump. Wow. Every single one of my clips is not showing up now. How does this happen? Freaking Elon Musk, man. Okay. That's just brilliant. All right, let me see what I can do here, friends. Wow. Isn't that interesting? I'm sorry. Hold on. This is why we don't have nice things, people. Huh. That makes no sense whatsoever. None of my clips are sitting in here. I mean, they're sitting in here, but they're not showing up. I'll show you what I'm seeing. This is what I'm seeing. I got the exact URL in there for these clips, and they won't queue up. So let me see what I can do here. Let me see if there's another way to get around this on the fly. We'll do it live. See what can happen here. How about it, huh? What else is going on? Oh, please leave. Please leave. Oh boy, I love it when this happens. Everything was going so good. At least in my mind it was. All right, well, try something here. Here's what I'm gonna try. I'll try this. This might work. This might work. Wow, it did not. So X is having a problem, it seems. All right. Well, that's interesting. Okay. All right. Let's try this. Okay. It's going to take me a second. Just converse amongst yourselves. But I'm going to rebuild this show for you because you matter. Okay. That's how much I care about you. I could have said, have a great weekend. Okay. I could have done a lot of things, right? Could be swimming right now. You could be swimming right now. Maybe you are swimming right now. I am not swimming right now, but maybe somebody is. But you know what? This is what I'm here for. Okay, so there's nothing special about it. This is just what I'm here for. Sure, right? Hey, I'm halfway there, guys. What do you think here? Anybody want to cheer me on? I wish I could read your comments right now. That's what I would normally be doing to fill time, but I can't read your comments while also doing this. This is a one-man band right here. Would anybody care to share how much they've spent on fireworks this year? Could have a contest to see who has spent the most money. Please share it in the chat. I would like to see how much money you have spent this year on fireworks. Fireworks have gotten pretty expensive, no? I mean, I haven't seen any of the buy one get, 5 free tents really these days. You know what I mean? It seems like it's kind of a thing of the past. It doesn't seem like the fireworks places are really trying to make deals like they used to. I miss those days when they seemed, lucky to have my business instead of now it's, oops, now it seems a little like, I should be so lucky to be able to purchase their stuff. Okay, friends, I might be close to being ready. All right. Okay, let me look at some of your comments here. David Slink says, I spent 10 times as much as last year, $0. I don't spend anything on fireworks, leaving that to the professionals, Rocky says. Cap Hill says, spent $200. Oh, by the way, Cap Hill had a $20 contribution to kick off the show. Says, still loving the show. My bad. Thank you, Cap Hill. All right, 200. Let's see who's got more. This is who I'm going to know that I'm going to solicit for donations, whoever gives the most. Zoni says they spent $0. I like my fingers, they said. David Sling says it's going to be a great signing on the 4th. David Sling says Elon threw a hissy. Yeah. Okay. Cap Hill says our gas is 1 or 2 cents a gallon. Our gas is 1 of 12 cents a gallon, paying $5 for diesel now. Our gas is 1 of 12 cents. I'm not understanding what you're saying there. Okay. Mostly Penny will not be going outside due to the hip replacement. When was the hip replacement, Mostly Penny? Rocky says we have illegal fireworks. 1 year we spent $2,000. Nothing feels like a waste of money like fireworks, right? I mean, because you just burn it up, right? Just burn it up. And then you have a crap ton of trash. Mostly Penny says the 1st, as in 2 days ago. 2 days ago. That's incredible. All right, let's look at TikTok. $4 a gallon in California, says Truth. Hold on here. I don't know who Undercover is saying, but Undercover Titan says, how can you support increasing the budget after harping on it being too big for years? support increasing the budget. There was no bill that they were going to do that wasn't going to increase the budget. I don't like it, but I've come to this place in understanding politics that there are certain inevitables that you just can't, they're not going to change. They're just not. My desire here is, because I understand the process, is you pay for a tax cut, you pay for allocated funds in places that are needed, because we have to have border security, we have to have defense, we have to be in a better place than we were when Biden screwed that up. We have to shore up those things. That is America first. That's to be able to make sure that we can take care of ourselves. So you have to do that. You could argue you didn't have to spend as much, and I would probably say the same thing. But does that mean the rest of the bill is just garbage because they spent too much? I mean, really, I'm okay with whatever they wanted to spend as long as they go in the budget process for the next budget and they cut that amount. If they balance the budget, I could give a rip how much they spend, in all honesty. Just as long as it's not more than they're bringing in, like the rest of us have to live like. So I'm not advocating for adding to the deficit at all. I'm just saying it's going to happen either way. They add to it every year, and they have been for a long, long time. This isn't just a new thing that just happened this time because it's Trump. But the way that they should be operating is they should be going through in this budget process and cutting a lot. I am not naive. They're not going to balance it this time. But I would like to see a lot of headway made in that process to where we aren't taking out as much debt. And by the way, they're not even considering the tariff revenue in any of these projections. And by the way, they're just projections by these various officers that study this stuff. So what's interesting is nobody 100% knows. A lot of times they project as negatively as possible. They round up as much as possible for worst case scenario. So I understand that. But that doesn't mean it's going to be the case as far as how much deficit will be added. You had in the Senate bill some of the changes they made added to the deficit, but there were also a lot of cuts. Again, projections. Okay? We may not know actually how many people are abusing Medicaid fully. So there might be more savings. So these are projections, but the projections were anywhere from 1.2 to 1.8 trillion in deficit reduction over 10 years with that House bill. And then, so you have to add that in there too. And so anyway, it cut a lot of things that shouldn't be cut. It cut a lot of things that we shouldn't be spending money on. And then, of course, the House and the budget process has to come back behind this and cut things that are waste, fraud, abuse, all these things that are irrelevant to what we need to be spending money on, right? And so that's part of the process. So no one's advocating for that. I don't even know if that question was for me, but I just want to help you understand that that's not where I'm at all. I am for tax cuts mainly. Okay. Rocky says, can I ask why we're keeping illegals in Medicaid but forcing Americans to work for it now? That's not accurate, actually. Everybody that gets Medicaid is going to have the work requirement with those exemptions. Now, it's illegal for illegal immigrants to get Medicaid. It's illegal. Is it happening? Yes, because that's happening on the state level. They're the ones that are actually doing it, and the federal government is reimbursing not specifically illegal immigrant Medicaid, but some of the state apportioned Medicaid payments. They are doing a reimbursement or a match to an extent, right? So the federal government is indirectly spending money on illegal immigrants with Medicaid, but they're not doing it specifically and knowingly. Some states are, and that window is alleged to have been worked on in the discussions with some people like Chip Roy and others who have negotiated to be able to close that gap so these states cannot do it. So my guess is that window, that loophole that some states out there are exploiting is going to go away. The states aren't technically allowed to do it. It's just not something that has been specifically cracked down on enough for accountability. They're not supposed to be doing it, but they're doing it because they have a certain amount of autonomy. And that window, that opportunity, I believe, is either closed or is going to be closing, depending on the wording in some of this bill. But I know it's on the radar of a lot of people. There was a lot of negotiation that was happening last night. Literally, Donald Trump was up all night on the phone, just like a lot of people in Congress. And so some of these people who were no votes or withholding their vote on, just getting the bill to a place where it could be debated, they were holdouts because they wanted assurances. Okay. Based on what Chip Roy was saying yesterday, a congressman out of Texas, I don't know this for a fact, but I'd be willing to bet money that one of the reasons he was holding out and one of the reasons he then decided to vote yes is because he got an assurance from Trump, from Mike Johnson, that this loophole is going to be definitively closed. We'll see. Time will tell. But in other words, I tell that to you so we're not in a place of being angry that wasn't addressed, because it's not supposed to be happening, but the states that are being bad actors in this are about to be found out, and that's going to be shut. And so I would be optimistic about it. Mostly Penny had hip surgery 2 days ago. Mostly Penny, how are we feeling? Bree says gas where she is actually went down for the 4th. Now I'm just enamored with the comments here. Okay. Zany Greek has a question. Let's see if I can get this up. Okay. Do we know if people on Medicaid who will be required to have a job now are going to get help finding one, or will it be one of those things where they take their word for it that they are applying? I don't know. I haven't seen the specific word by word parameters of what that means, and some of it may not actually be fully vetted out on practical application of that. So here's the thing. Does anybody live anywhere right now where there aren't at least some, a job? Doesn't mean it's the job you want, but my point is if somebody wants Medicaid and they're required to work, there are a lot of jobs out there. May not be the most glamorous job, but if you want your Medicaid, I would be sitting here going, well, if you really want a job, you can find it. So just because you're looking, maybe you give them a certain time period to find a job, sure. But if you're actually truly looking, hey, I looked for a job, okay. How hard did you actually look? Here's what people do. They're getting unemployment or other benefits, and they will apply for jobs. And they will make an appointment to have an interview, and then they will ghost you. It happened to me many times in my company, where it's like, why do people go through all this trouble and act like they really want this job, and then they just totally ghost you? They don't even show up. They don't answer their phone anymore. Like, what's the deal when they're so excited? Well, somebody brought it to my attention. That's just so they can show whoever they're getting benefits from that they are working toward it. Oh yeah, I got this interview. Here's the proof of it. I don't know. I didn't get the job. But they can still keep getting their benefits. So people game the system. So I'm less likely to be okay with just saying, "Oh, hey, you tried." Mostly Penny feeling okay, just sore and drugged. Well, Godspeed to you, mostly Penny. Get well soon. Sore and drugged. Yeah, that does sound like a Diddy freak off party, for sure, like David Sling said. All right, back to the clips. Here's Hakeem Jeffries droning on and on and on, kind of like I've been doing for the last hour. Take a look. Look at the people behind him. They are dozing. A crime scene. That's what he's calling this bill, a crime scene. While people behind him are dozing off. Of course, the guy talked for 8 hours straight. My goodness gracious. Let's get a close-up on some of the nodding, can we? I think we can. Here, take a look. Couple grandmamas behind him there. Grandpapa. They're just asleep. There you go. People on TikTok are like, wait a minute, there's no video. Well, as I've said multiple times, if you want to see video, you have to follow us over to one of the other platforms. They won't let us show it on TikTok. Okay, you can find that in the link in my bio or just go to IkeReport.com. So basically, at the Shady Acres retirement home, it was nap time. And with Hakeem Jeffries and his very slow cadence is just exhausting for 8 hours. Good grief. All right, White House plans on July 4th, tomorrow, an 8 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Eastern time. So 9 a.m. Eastern time, signing ceremony for Trump's big, beautiful bill. Historic, my friends, historic. Which, by the way, I stopped and talked to my neighbor on the way home the other day, and we started talking about this big, beautiful bill. We started talking about it, and he said, do you think they're going to get it done? I said, if I had to bet right now, I would put the chances of it happening as no versus yes, because that was when the Senate was just screwing with it hardcore. And then, something turned where the Senate got it done. And I was like, wow, okay. So for them to get it done is actually, surprising, because I just didn't think it was going to happen by 4th of July, but it did. Trump made it happen. I mean, this shows you the amount of influence that Trump has and the power that he has and the respect that he is getting inside Congress. People are saying no sound. No sound for me right now. It's funny, as TikTok hears me, but no sound on the House video. This happened once before. I don't remember how we fixed it. To heck with it. We're done. See you guys later. Have a great weekend. I don't know why. I don't know why it's not working. Huh. All right. Well, I'll just do what I can here. All right. So Steve Scalise talking about Medicaid says if you're disabled on Medicaid right now, you've been crowded out by able-bodied people sitting at home playing video games. If you're disabled on Medicaid right now, entitled to the benefits, okay, that's another thing I should have said. Disabled people. I mean, that's where you're on it forever, more than likely. Understandably so, okay? I didn't mean to leave my disabled folks out of there. But if you're disabled on Medicaid right now, you've been crowded out by able-bodied losers sitting at home playing video games in their mom's basement, taking your benefits, or at least gumming up the system to make it inefficient to be able to help you in the way that it should be helped. So make no mistake, this isn't about cutting people who deserve or need Medicaid truly out. It is just course correcting this abuse. All right, let me see if I can get this clip up. All right, so we've covered the big beautiful bill. Let me see if I can bring this clip up. Okay, I can. Tell me if you can hear this, guys.
When it was wide open. Thank you so threat. There are
Yes.
Iranians that have come across the border when it was wide open. That is a big concern, obviously.
Well, it is. And we talked about this at the time during the last administration.
Yes.
The number of people who are on the terrorist watch list that we knew had come over. The issue becomes who we didn't know who came over, right? From both the northern and the southern borders. This is obviously, now we've got a DOJ, we've got an attorney general, we've got a president who understands the importance of safety in this country. And that is now built up. We know just President Trump's presence has sealed that border. But it is about from city to city, town to town, knowing that we recognize the importance of safety in the streets. But you're going to get certainly alerts like this. We are ready for it. But Americans have that in mind as we move forward.
Thank you so.
All right, State Department spokeswoman Tammy Bruce says America is ready for potential 4th of July Iranian terror attacks. Okay. And so did you guys even see that clip? I don't remember. It's just been one of those days. Okay. And so we have that as far as the terror attacks. Now, this is what we're hearing. Americans at July 4th celebrations are warned of lone wolf terrorist threat. Security expert warns of heightened alert following Trump administration's successful strikes on Iran's nuclear sites. But then we have from open source intel via NBC, they're saying Iran has decided against taking further action against the U.S. Okay, so I would say be on alert this 4th of July. To make sure that you're just being vigilant as far as, some large events that you might be at, because you just never know. You just never know. Okay. Now, I believe Trump is having some event tonight, right? He's having the Salute to America celebration in Des Moines, Iowa tonight. So some of the networks are going to be carrying that. So check that out if that is of interest. Earlier this morning, I was on with Real America's Voice. And here was part of that. Sorry, we're just having tech issues today. My bad. I mean, not my bad. I didn't do it, but I'm sorry.
I notice with the liberal media is that they love to say the doom and gloom and the deficit and all that, but they never talk about the growth potential. There's usually one line buried somewhere in page or paragraph 9 of a New York Times article say the White House says growth will actually help here. That's it. That's all they say. No stories about it at all. But that's a big part of the story.
Well, it is a big part of the story. I've got to get my Independence Day tie correct here. Sorry, before I can proceed. So the growth potential is absolutely something they leave out. It is the whole glass half full, glass half empty kind of way of looking at it. But Democrats are looking at it as basically the glass is broken. They're telling a lot of lies about this. They say it's only benefiting billionaires, where the only substantive thing that has changed for billionaires is the estate tax, which is for, well, the people that are left behind after the billionaire is dead. So that doesn't pass muster. And liberals should be thanking Republicans for the increase in the SALT tax deduction. A lot of tax increases or tax decreases last time during the Trump tax cuts weren't felt as heavily in those liberal states because they have super high taxes, right? Well, they've increased the deduction. So liberals should be thanking Donald Trump at this point, but they're not. But when you talk about the growth, we're also talking about getting people back to work. They want to whine and cry about Medicaid and say we're stripping people from their benefits. No, we're talking about getting people back to work with dignity because they are gaming the system. But you add the tariffs in there, you add potentially a rate cut at some point in July, hopefully, and these tax cuts, and we are going to have an explosion in the economy. Just like the Congresswoman pointed out earlier. Last time during the tax cut, the Congressional Budget Office got it wrong. They got it wrong on the projections. And in fact, even though taxes were lowered last time, tax revenue increased. And by 2019, it was exploding. Then we all know what happened after that. So history, we have an example in history with Donald Trump, with these tax cuts, they ignite the economy. There is no question about it. And all this doom and gloom, this Chicken Little stuff is not going to cut it. The facts disagree. The economy will boom under these Trump tax cuts.
Okay. So I've kind of told you that. I forgot the SALT deduction too.
I noticed with the liberal media is that
it is something that the libs should be, in liberal states should be thanking President Trump for, but they won't. And then it was asked about how this is going to affect midterms. I was told the second question was going to be about Laura Trump running in North Carolina. So that's what I prepared for. And this is, but whatever. You just, you prep for everything and just hope that you're ready.
How do you think the passage or the non-passage of this big, beautiful bill will ultimately impact the midterm elections? You sound very confident it's going to pass. Does that mean you feel like midterm elections are in the can? Because, from there, according to what you're telling us, all that can happen is the economy can continue to really explode.
Well, we're in this sort of limbo period right now, and I would say we're getting out of it. The limbo period meaning the uncertainty with tariffs. And with tariffs, one of the things that would cause problems is people holding back without consumer confidence and driving us into a recession. So far, that has not happened. And President Trump has been brilliant about continuing to get the story out there in the forefront, touting the wins, gaining confidence with the American people, and then therefore the American people having consumer confidence. So we have weathered that period, I believe, and now we're seeing those deals happen. And so when it comes to the midterms, when you have nearly a year of track record of positive gains and then some, actually, I would say, leading into those midterms, you are going to have a great chance of securing the seats that you have and maybe even getting some additional seats. But you have a year runway, a year track record of positive economic growth. And so I think it's no accident. People say that this deadline of July 4th is arbitrary. I think it's on purpose to allow enough time to see those economic increases before the midterms.
Ike Wingate, thank you so much for being with us.
Great to be with you. Happy Independence Day.
You as well.
Thanks, Ike.
I by the way, I have the earrings that match his bow tie. I don't know how that happened today, but very, very excited about that.
Okay. I had the patriotic bow tie on around this morning that obviously was crooked, and I could not go on and carry out the segment seeing myself on the monitor with it crooked, and it's always backwards when you're looking. It's weird. You're looking at it, and it's like a mirror in a weird way. And I said, screw it. I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to call it out, and I'm going to move on. And but I'm not going to do this whole appearance with a crooked tie, because every time I have a crooked tie, someone lets me know about it. So I did not want to give the tie police any fodder to hold against me. So anyway, it was a clip-on. It was a clip-on. My mom got that for me somewhere. It ended up at my house, right? And I think she got it for me. One of the kids told me that. They just showed up with it after visiting Nana. And I decided to wear it for her. Okay, so the CNN network here is talking about the jobs market. They're shocked at the jobs numbers, the latest job numbers coming out better than expected today.
You expected some of this, but this is better than expected?
Yeah, Sarah, it is. Look, this jobs market is like the Energizer Bunny. Every single time we expect it to run out of steam, it just keeps going and going. So these new numbers show that the U.S. economy added 147,000 jobs in June. That was well ahead of the expectation of about 118,000, well ahead of some whispers that we heard on Wall Street of a sub 100,000 number. So this is indeed beating expectations. We were also expecting a slowdown. We did not get that. This is basically in line with May, which was revised higher. It's also good news. The unemployment rate was expected to go up. It didn't. It went down to 4.1%. That is a very healthy number. This is still relatively historically low. And again, it's below the 4.3% that we had expected.
Wow, even CNN had to admit it. I mean, that must have been really painful for their liberal hearts. We also have Bloomberg astounded at how strong these jobs numbers came in. By the way, mind you, these aren't federal jobs. These aren't government jobs we're talking about, because that's not happening right now. This is organic growth, my friends, which is not inflationary.
And this is good news, much better than expected. An upside surprise on headline payrolls, 147, the estimate 106. The unemployment rate was at 4.2. In our survey, economists were looking for that to climb up to 4.3. It comes in at 4.1. And if you want some high frequency data, or at least some higher frequency data, jobless claims, much lower than expected. Across the board here in the labor market, this is a pretty solid read.
All right, so some people point at this and go, well, you know, this is a sign of a strong economy, which means inflation's coming, and so the Fed likely won't lower the rates. Well, I think that's bullcrap, because organic growth, where the government's not pumping money into the system, we're not seeing all this quantitative easing or whatever they're doing, printing money, et cetera, and it's organic, these aren't government jobs, then we should be seeing a rate cut, because inflation will stay low, just like it did during the Trump administration. That's the difference. Historically low inflation because you have organic growth, because you've done the things to spur on and spark the economy, spark growth, incentivize it, and it's organic, so inflation stays low. And so, you know, some people point to this and go, well, actually, this is going to be bad, because, you know, the jobs numbers are so good. That means inflation's coming. And so that is, I think the Fed should be looking at it as organic growth. It's not the same. Native-born workers, you know, Americans gained 830,000 jobs, while foreign-born workers lost 348,000, according to the latest U.S. jobs report. So Americans are taking back more of our jobs, is what's happening. And as some people like Stephen Miller and others have said, the universe is healing. The universe is healing. Americans are gaining jobs. Foreign-born workers are losing jobs. Okay? And so, you know, for the longest time, our American jobs have been outsourced and taken from us. There's a lot of illegal immigrant workers that have taken American jobs. Well, that is being reversed. I mean, look at all these numbers. I mean, and it has not been that long. It has not been that long, which is incredible. I mean, I knew it would be at some point I would be right by backing Trump's economic policies, because we have a model that worked really well a few years ago. I just didn't think I would be proven right this fast. Not even me. Okay. And all those that voted for Trump also in the same boat. Okay. Congressman Andy Ogles thinks and is moving toward the Mount Rushmore edition of President Trump. He says, given the scale and scope of President Trump's recent achievements, especially the big, beautiful bill, it is essential we immortalize President Trump's likeness on Mount Rushmore. Like Washington, Trump did not seek his position for glory, but out of love for his country, championing American independence and reshaping the presidency with dynamism, clarity, and purpose. Like Jefferson, he expanded America's horizons by pursuing new frontiers and breaking away from deep state tyrants. Like Teddy Roosevelt, Trump took on entrenched interests, reinvigorated American industry, and avenged the working class against bureaucratic bloat and corporate corruption. The legacy of Mount Rushmore cannot remain frozen in stone. It must evolve to reflect the full arc of American history, including its most recent and transformative chapter. There you see it. An AI rendering of President Trump on Mount Rushmore. See, they're showing him with the tie. None of the other. Oh, well, I guess Washington kind of has one there. I've never been to Mount Rushmore. I'm sure I'll go at some point someday. But anyway, what do you think? You think Trump deserves to be on Mount Rushmore? What do you think? Let me know in the chat. David Sling says, I just don't know if there's room for the hair. They're gonna bring in a big, beautiful extra rock for the hair. They're gonna put it right on top. They're gonna bring one of those beautiful helicopters, those big helos. They're gonna come. They're gonna drop it right there. It's gonna be my hair. It's gonna be beautiful. Have you ever noticed, these showers? They have the restrictors, and you just it's like I take a shower. I think I can't even wash my hair. He loves going off on that rant. It's straight up like a Seinfeld clip. You ever notice the showers? You can't get a good shower. Rocky says, I think he deserves to be on Mount Rushmore for sure. Star says, oh, yes. Zany says, I think it would cause a lot of lunatics to start attacking mountains. That's true. That's true. I agree. Rocky here is saying that Trump also needs to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Exactly. 100%. Okay. A huge win. If you missed the show on Tuesday, go back and watch it. We had Seth Woodall on with us. He's an attorney. He chimed in on this monumental decision from the Supreme Court regarding these injunctions that are issued for the entire country by a small area somewhere in a state. He chimed in on that monumental, huge win for the rule of law and common sense. And so that was a big win. However, you still have some of these psycho judges that are out there trying to wreak havoc. So we got one now who has, as A. Muse points out here, just days after SCOTUS outlawed nationwide injunctions, Obama Judge Randolph Moss has circumvented their ruling by creating a global protected class that includes every current and future illegal alien, allowing them to claim asylum. The magic phrase Soros and USAID-backed NGOs teach every illegal alien on their journey to the U.S. say that you're there for asylum, right?
White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller is blasting the ruling. He wrote on X, quote, to try to circumvent the Supreme Court ruling on nationwide injunctions, a Marxist judge has declared that all potential future illegal aliens on foreign soil, a large portion of planet Earth, are part of a protected global class entitled to admission into the United States, end quote. And Jillian, as for what happens next, Judge Moss says his ruling blocking Trump's executive order won't take effect for 2 weeks. That's in order to give time for the Trump administration to appeal and also to prepare at the border to start restoring those asylum claims.
So basically, to get around the ruling on the nationwide injunctions aren't allowed. This guy ruled, which how the heck would anybody ever advocate for someone to have this power? A district judge ruling that all potential future illegal immigrants on foreign soil are a protected class based on they may in the future end up in the United States. And that's how they're going to try to get around this. There's no way. There is absolutely no way that this is going to hold up. But they're trying. They continue to try to bastardize our laws because they hate America. That's what it is. They hate America. They want the United States to be weak so we can be part. They want a strong globe and a weak U.S. They are globalists, and many are far more than that. But the globalist agenda is at hand here, my friends, because a weak U.S. allows for a one world system. Now, some of them might believe they're doing the right thing, but that is totally misguided, uninformed, and misplaced empathy for illegal immigrants. They don't want a strong U.S. And so they are, again, bastardizing, whoring out, using, whatever you want to call it, our legal system to try to stop America from being strong. That's just really what it is. That's not going to hold up. And that ruling last week was incredibly huge. Not because it was like, oh, should it have happened? No. It's huge that they just upheld the law and common sense. That a judge in who knows where, Oregon, can't make law for the entire country. They can only make laws that affect the person, make judgments on the person that's in their courtroom or the person that is bringing the case. Well, this judge thought he'd get crafty and make it a class action kind of thing, right? A whole class of people that may or may not, but at some point in the future, therefore, such as be on American soil and be an illegal immigrant, so they're a protected class. Ain't gonna work. Ain't gonna work, dude. Ain't gonna work. Okay, so Daisy says the Globe is laughing at us over on TikTok. Daisy, why would the Globe be laughing at us? They're jealous, for sure, of us. They all want to be us. But why, pray tell? I'll indulge your misguided statement and engage you in understanding where you're trying to go with this. Daisy, why is the Globe laughing at us? Please enlighten the rest of us. Why don't you educate us? Help us understand your level of intellectual understanding that we clearly are not privy to. Please, if you would be so kind to condescend down to our level in order to help us understand what you already know, that the Globe is laughing at us. Daisy, please don't go dark on us. We need to know. We are waiting on bated breath to become enlightened by your all-knowing wisdom that the Globe is laughing at us. Please, Daisy, tell us. Daisy, where are you? Daisy has gone eerily silent. Yes, the world wants to be the U.S. Go to any foreign country. They want to come to the U.S. They want to be us. Everybody is jelly. It doesn't mean we're perfect, but we have the only system, and this is appropriate due to what's happening tomorrow. We're the only system in history from a government standpoint that has enshrined it in our Constitution and acknowledged it from the very beginning that our rights come from the Almighty God. Our unalienable rights come from a creator. They are endowed to us. No other society, civilization, etc. has ever said that. from the very beginning. The founders, while not perfect, which I don't know, you're not perfect, I'm not perfect, no one is, but the founders were pretty freaking smart. And it was, I believe, a providential experience in how they created the Constitution. But from the get-go, our founders fully acknowledged God, Almighty God, that any right to anything, any rights we have are given to us by our Creator, made in His image, put on earth for a purpose and a reason, the pursuit of happiness amongst life and liberty. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We are endowed by our Creator. Nobody else has done that. Gee, I wonder if that has something to do with our success. And our forefathers have changed the world with a system that acknowledges the rights we have as individuals come from God. Freedom matters. Tyranny is death, and we will fight for it. And what we have been a part of is this incredible experiment that has resulted in the most successful, most robust, most incredible story of the amazing underdog that succeeded to the top position of the world, the greatest superpower. And we were the underdog for so long. And that is what we have done. That is why people want to be the United States of America, because nobody else has been able to do it, because so many times it's all about keeping and holding power and keeping the people under your thumb, which is what our federal government and a lot of times our politicians try to do. But still, at this point, we are freer than everywhere else. And so that is what is so special about this. However, there are some people like those in the chat that can't handle this. Okay, they think the government is God and that the government solves all the problems. And they get something called TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, anytime they're exposed to one of Donald Trump's wins. Kathy Griffin on your screen, case in point. This woman has become incredibly deranged. She's afflicted with a chronic level of TDS. Her bangs have disappeared. And this is Kathy Griffin, the comedian who held up the severed, bloody head of Trump. Yeah, you remember that years ago. And she has continued to just spiral downhill, was caught on camera, and she looks like a nasty, nasty woman, let me tell you. So nasty. This is what Trump derangement syndrome will do to you. You don't have to love Trump, but obsessing and picking apart everything he does as wrong takes its toll on a person. And let me tell you, it's not good for your health. All right, you want to support the work we're doing? Cash App or Venmo, IkeReport.com. Cash App or Venmo, IkeReport.com. Would love it if you would help us cover some of our costs before we head into the weekend. And I want to say thanks to Star and to Cap Hill and to Nancy. Those are our contributors today. Please consider helping us out by going to IkeReport.com and giving via Cash App or Venmo. Make sure you're following me on X at Ike Wingate. Check out the link in my bio to find all my socials. All right, so we have the opening of Alligator Alcatraz earlier this week. We talked about that on Tuesday. Here's a look inside of Alligator Alcatraz. As you see, there are beds and sections here. There are, it's sectioned off with fencing, of course, but it's indoor. It's air conditioned. Don't let them lie to you. Very nice beds. I mean, what more do they want? Right? And remember, these are dangerous criminals, by the way. So, it's supposed to be like a jail, and it is. It is, because these people have broken the law. But then you have liberals who are going nuts about Alligator Alcatraz based on lies willing or unwilling, but it is not correct information. And so we will play you today's Triggered Liberal based on Alligator Alcatraz.
It's time for today's Triggered Liberal.
How disgusting, how cruel, how inhumane this administration is. If you haven't heard the term alligator Alcatraz, look it up, go find it, and I'm sure you're going to hear some more about it. These assholes are out here laughing about these concentration camps. Yes, concentration camps. They're literally being built with fences in the heat, swamp-infested areas of Florida to give that governor a nice little payday. Okay, they are cages. Jizz. No air conditioning. Who knows if there's going to be running water, but surrounded alligator-infested swamps. And they think it's funny. They think it's funny.
It
Now,
is.
I haven't done all my research on this second part that I'm about to
Clearly.
talk to you about.
Clearly.
I've seen a lot of videos about stories being suppressed about what they are doing with some of these immigrants that they are deporting. There have been sightings of immigrants being escorted in shackles on their feet onto cargo planes, the kind that open with the hatch in the back. And some of the things that are being said about this is that these cargo planes are flying out over the Atlantic Ocean and they're losing radar.
What an idiot. You know how many international laws that would violate? We would never hear the end of it. One guy got transported, Maryland man, and people wigged out. It dominated the news cycle. Woman abuser, human trafficker, etc., gang member, and this woman thinks that it's even feasible that they're dropping the hatch on a cargo plane on a C-7 or something and just dropping people into the ocean. Get real. These people are nuts.
And people are coming up missing. Now, I'm not saying that it's true because I can't tell you factually it's true. All I can tell you is I've seen a few videos about this story being super, super, super suppressed by the media.
Give me a
And
break.
there's photos out there, whether they're AI generated or not.
The media would love to latch on to this. This woman is so psycho and disconnected from reality. If there was even a chance this was true, it'd be all over CNN and MSNBC.
I don't know. After hearing about alligator Alcatraz, you wouldn't put it past him. It would not put it past him. There have been dictators in our history who have done horrific, nasty things. And as we all went through school and learning history, we all thought, how can anybody let that happen? Gosh, those people back there in that time, they were of a different mindset. It could happen today. It could happen today. It's terrifying.
This person is among us, clearly driving a car, voting. Maybe she has kids. This kind of idiocy is unfortunately what you get in a free society. It happens. We have a free society to an extent. People are allowed to believe what they want, free speech, etc. Unfortunately, there's no law against being an idiot. And this is one of these idiot, white, liberal women who are on antidepressants, who have gone more and more psycho over the years, who are a huge part of ruining this country because of their quote-unquote white guilt and misplaced empathy. And not only that, out there spreading complete poppycock, just total nonsense. It just makes them look so bad.
It's time for today's Triggered Liberal.
My gosh. My gosh. All right. Cash App or Venmo, IkeReport.com. Please help us cover our costs. IkeReport.com, Cash App or Venmo. Cap Hill says that lady's Delulu. Rocky says they should be charged with those lies. Are we? Jenny says, these poor prisoners. Too bad, don't break the law. Somebody on TikTok said that facility, Alligator Alcatraz, is actually nicer than most of the homeless centers in the country. I mean, Star says federal prison doesn't have air conditioning. And we saw the air conditioners being brought in to that facility, actually. There's video of it. So anyway, Cap Hill says crazy talk. Davis Link says, I bet the guy who killed the firefighters was on antidepressants. He was on something. Yeah, that's totally weird. Another person goes crazy. Killed 2 firefighters. My brother's a firefighter. He's actually been instrumental in, for years, advocating that firefighters should be allowed to carry when on the job. And some places have allowed that. So that conversation has come back up for sure. I think, when you got crazy people out there, just unacceptable when you got firefighters who are trying to save people's lives. My nephew's also a firefighter, and they have to worry about someone taking them out while they're helping. I mean, that is insanity, definition of insanity, and just evil, heinous, horrible, horrific. Tomorrow, have fun at work, England. Have fun at work tomorrow, England. You should have, you know what? You should have done better. Okay. Then you wouldn't have to worry about this. But you didn't. We beat you. So have fun. Okay. All right. We're about to wrap it up, my friends. Again, I want to plead with you to help me cover the costs of this show. Please, Cash App or Venmo at IkeReport.com. Cash App or Venmo at IkeReport.com, or in the chat on Rumble. Let's see. Anything else I was going to get on here with your comments? Bree says, the Globe is laughing at us. Sounds like one of the leftist talking points. Nothing to back it up, just something to say. Yeah, no kidding. The Globe is laughing at us. Mm-hmm. They're laughing and then crying. Cap Hill says, totally agree. Mostly Penny has made it through the show without dozing off. Well, it's not over yet. It's not over yet. As we head into Independence Day, let's remember how special this day is. Celebrate, enjoy, and mark this occasion in your mind as one of the most significant dates in history. Right? One of the most significant dates in history, my friends. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Okay? We know this, right? I messed it up. I had all my music queued up, and then it went and played a commercial. Wouldn't you know it? Here we go. You guys ready? We hold these truths. Actually, how about this? When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve political bands, this is the Declaration of Independence, by the way. Dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But, my friends, when you had enough, you had enough. When a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which it constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the supreme judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they will have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each and other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Ladies and gentlemen, an excerpt from the Declaration of Independence, so declared this date 249 years ago tomorrow, 1776. My friends, we live in the greatest experiment, the best country in the world. While not perfect, we endeavor and pursue a more perfect union, remembering that we are the sole civilization, acknowledging that our rights come from our Creator. Blood has been spilled, tears have been cried, and much pain has been endured to secure this freedom for you and for me. And so on this Independence Day, we must take stock with gratitude, humility, and pride in the United States of America and all those that have fought, died, and otherwise to secure these freedoms we hold so dear. So take heart, my fellow patriots and Americans. This is a time to celebrate, to be grateful, and to salute our flag in gratitude for all those that came before us and the wonderful blessings of our Almighty God to be able to live in this country. Of all the places, of all the times that you could be existing in the chronological line of time, we're here for such a time as this. Embrace it, enjoy it, and this weekend, be safe and celebrate our independence. Happy birthday, America. Happy Independence Day to you. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Lord willing, we're back with you Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central. Have a wonderful weekend. Happy Independence Day. God bless you. So glad you're here. So grateful for you. And God bless America.
Rate, subscribe, and leave a review. It's how we get the word out amidst the chaos. Thanks for listening to The Ike Wingate Show.